to our second vidcast for the Cultural Flashpoints group. We're so excited you're here for a listen today because this is going to be a very special episode. We are so excited to be joined by a friend of the firm, actually firm partner, Dave Baffa, but friend to the Cultural Flashpoints group. Dave is an employment counselor extraordinaire whose vision has led him to develop many of the innovative tools that set Seyfarth apart from other firms in this space. So we want to get right into it. We know everyone is busy and wants a quick listen. So our focus today is going to be on cultural assessments. So let's kick it off, Dave Baffa. Welcome. We're so excited you're here. What is a cultural assessment?
Thanks, Sam. Well, a cultural assessment, it really can take on a lot of different meanings, and it's something that is evolved a little bit over time, depending on sort of what the flashpoint or issue has been. Basically, it's sort of a structured review or evaluation of an organization's norms and values, behaviors, the way employees and management are sort of interacting. It's a way to test the kind of effectiveness of policies and communication programs, and the methods, primarily involve a lot of interviews and discussions, ideally live, but more recent times, often they're over a video platform like this one. But ideally, they're in-person sort of interviews where you can really get a feel for employees and get their feedback in terms of their day-to-day environment, their day-to-day working situation. That's, I think interviews are probably the most common way, but there's other techniques you can use to try to tap into the way employees are feeling. Focus groups, kind of surveys or engagement type surveys. And of course, just generally reviewing an organization's policies, communications, trying to get a feel for the heartbeat of the organization, the way they communicate with one another, communicate with employees.
So I love that. So when we talk about an assessment, it's really a whole host of things that help you get to the heartbeat of a business's culture. Is that fair?
I think that's fair. I think, it's funny when we first started to do work like this. I think one of the earliest events was there was a law or a threat of a law that was going to come down to hit American workplaces called the Employee Free Choice Act. And this had to be 15 years ago or something, where there was this concern that organizations were going to be able to organize for union organizing purposes, that in the United States, that private businesses would be able to go to just a card signing process instead of a secret ballot election. And the fear was that, boy, that's going to make it so much easier for employees to form or join a union. We really need to get at whether or not they're experiencing heartburn at work, concerns, have problems with engagement, or problems with the way they're being supervised or managed, the way that they're being communicated to and with, to make sure that they don't have this kind of hair trigger ability to organize and form a union instead. And then fast forward quite a number of years with the Me Too movement, where there was a real push in a lot of organizations to do a real census check on whether women in particular were being treated with dignity and respect at work, or whether there was a sense that the environment was one that was where there were pervasive feelings of sexism or inappropriate sort of behavior. And there were a number of organizations around the Me Too movement that went through that kind of experience. And now here we are again with all kinds of sort of cultural flashpoint issues and red state, blue state issues, from vaccination to war in Gaza, to all kinds of issues that might kind of come into the workplace and affect productivity and engagement and create tension in the workplace. And so we're seeing a resurgence in employers getting interested again and trying to dig in and understand their culture and how it's working.
Yeah, I mean, we're only a little over a month into 2026, and it certainly seems like the era of polarization roiling the workplace is nowhere near done, if you know.
Yeah.
So, from your vantage point, how can cultural assessments help employers to address and hopefully even lessen the polarization that's plaguing American workforces?
Well, I think it's important for any organization to demonstrate that it cares about these issues, that it's focused on these issues. I think, and you experience this all the time in your practice, Sam, that, employers struggle with this tension of employees want their employers to sort of take positions on issues, but when those issues are divisive issues, that obviously gets very difficult. And sometimes employers can swing too far away from, some employers kind of go way out on one end of the spectrum and take hard positions on hard issues, and other employers sort of retreat from the space entirely for fear of roiling some part of their population or another. And finding that sweet spot, is difficult. It's important work. And I think in general, all those things set a tone for communication and a tone for um, an employer's policies and the way that it relates to employees. And we're really trying to get at the bottom of um, of of how that is working, whether it's effective, whether it's diffusing tension or causing division or causing tension. And of course, we always want employees, most importantly, to feel sort of safe at work, psychologically safe, to feel like there's not favoritism, that they're able to communicate freely, that they can sort of trust their leaderships, trust their colleagues. And so that's, big picture, that's what you're really trying to achieve through this kind of work or this kind of process.
Yeah, I think that's so smart the way you're describing it, because when you're talking about hot button issues that aren't tied directly into the business, it's really hard to know how those are landing. And you want to have proactive ways to be able to check, like, did that resonate? Did that not resonate? And
Yeah.
so I think that's a really smart tool. Um, while I was just speaking of the wonderful positives about the cultural assessment, we wouldn't be lawyers if we didn't also talk about risk. So what are some of the risks that are potentially associated with doing cultural assessments? And, parallel to that, what are some helpful strategies that that can be employed to mitigate those risks?
Yeah, a great question. I think one of the risks or problems is that, if you're going to undertake something like this, you need to be able to deliver. I mean, in other words, you don't want to raise expectations and then not deliver results, or create the impression that, the employer is going to fix all the problems that employees might have. I think the way that the work is set up, the way that you set expectations at the start, can be very important. And really having a commitment to get quick wins um, and to put, sort of benchmarks and goals down for those sort of longer term fixes that may be necessary, all while communicating very clearly with employees along the way. I think, anytime you're doing anything that looks like an investigation, and listen, sometimes these, at the simplest level, sometimes you can just have situations where there's bad management or problem management, or something that a problem you're trying to root out of the organization, to get at just better ways of working and to improve morale and productivity and everything else. And people that are being asked to share perhaps negative information or concerns about other people, can often be fearful of retaliation. Um, it's funny, as I do more investigations over video now than in person, unfortunately, and it is harder to get people in this format to open up, to get them to feel safe, to make them feel like they can know you, that they can trust you as an investigator or an interviewer. And so But boy, you really want people to be able to feel free to open up, to not be fearful of retaliation, because it can really mess with your results, and potentially waste a lot of time. Um, what are other risks? I mean, I guess I suppose it's possible, depending on what the flashpoint is or the issue is, that you can inadvertently, increase discussion, increase tension, rather than trying to find put a framework in place to resolve it. But that's I think it's just a matter of trying to approach it thoughtfully, carefully, in a well-meaning way, and making sure that everybody's aligned, and that you're picking the right interviewers, who are going to be people who can demonstrate empathy, who can listen, who can sort of find a smooth path to get employees to open up and to understand sort of the dynamics without inadvertently sort of raising tension or making people feel like they're being questioned, like there's some kind of inquisition going on. So off the top, those are just some thoughts of sort of risks you might run into as you do this work.
No, I think that's great. I think, being really clear on expectations of what the goals of the assessment are, and then approaching with kindness and trying to build a supportive group. I mean, I think those are really important things that we can take to heart. Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time, Dave. We're so appreciative for your thought leadership, and I know your clients are so lucky to have your number on speed dial when they have a need for cultural assessments. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Sam. It's a pleasure.